1994, a man nobody had ever heard of opened a chicken wing restaurant in a strip mall in Garland, Texas. Not Dallas, not New York, not Chicago, Garland, Texas. He started his career at 15 years old as a dishwasher, and 30 years later, the company he built and then walked away from is worth billions of dollars. Its stock has risen over 1,000% since going public. It has over 3,000 locations in 20 countries, and the man who started it all, he sold it for a fraction of what it became. This is the story of Wingstop, and it's not the story you think it is, because this isn't just a story about chicken wings. It's a story about a dishwasher who saw something nobody else saw, about a company that changed hands 3 times before anyone understood what it actually was, about a rapper who became one of its most famous ambassadors, and about the founder who walked away from what might be the greatest restaurant success story of the last 30 years. In this video, we're going to trace the full story, from a 15-year-old kid washing dishes in Texas to a billion-dollar publicly traded company that has grown faster than almost any restaurant chain in American history. We're going to break down exactly how Wingstop did what nobody thought was possible, building an entire business around a single product that everyone else treated as a side dish. And we're going to answer the question that haunts this entire story. How did the man who built all of this end up walking away right before it became everything he imagined? Stay until the end, because that last part reframes everything. Before we get into it, one number. Wingstop's stock has climbed 1,135% since it went public in 2015. 1,135%. In September 2024 alone, the stock hit an all-time high of $432 per share. The IPO price in 2015 was $19. Think about what that means for anyone who held shares from the beginning. Now think about what it means for the man who founded the company, built it from nothing, grew it to 90 locations, and then sold it in 2003, 12 years before the IPO when the stock was worth nothing. That's the tension at the heart of the story, and it starts in the way all great American business stories start, with someone who had nothing to lose. Antonio Swad started working in restaurants at 15 years old, not as a manager, not in marketing, not in a corporate training program, as a dishwasher. And that detail, that specific entry point into the industry, matters more than it might seem, because the people who actually understand restaurants, the ones who know what makes a kitchen work, what makes customers come back, what separates a concept that survives from one that doesn't, they're almost never the people who studied it in business school. They're the ones who started at the bottom and watched everything. Swad watched everything. He was watching something else, something sitting right there on his own menu that nobody was paying attention to: the wings. Here's the thing about chicken wings in the early 1990s that's almost impossible to understand from a 2026 perspective. Nobody took them seriously. Wings were bar food, appetizer food, the thing you ordered while you were waiting for the real meal to arrive, the thing you put on the table at a Super Bowl party because they were cheap and easy and nobody expected them to be anything more than that. Swad wasn't just saying wings can be a main dish. He was saying wings can be the only dish. That an entire restaurant concept, the menu, the branding, the customer experience, the economics, could be built around a single product that every other restaurant in America was treating as an afterthought. That's not a small idea. That's a completely different way of thinking about what a restaurant is. The first Wingstop restaurant opened its doors in Garland, Texas in 1994. Located in a modest strip mall, the restaurant quickly gained a loyal following, thanks to its focus on freshly cooked wings and a variety of bold, flavorful sauces. Modest strip mall, not a prime location, not a flagship store on a busy corner in downtown Dallas, a strip mall in a suburb. And here's why that matters. The restaurant industry has a long history of concepts that work in premium locations and fail everywhere else. Places that succeed because of foot traffic and visibility and the kind of customers who happen to walk by, not because of what they're actually selling. Wingstop worked in a strip mall, which meant if the model held, it could work anywhere. Swad designed the kitchen workflow specifically to accommodate fresh wings, approximately 14-minute cook time, trading traditional fast food instant service for quality and consistency. In a fast food industry built on speed, where 30 seconds of wait time is considered a problem, Swad designed his entire operation around a 14-minute cook time because he understood something that most fast food operators didn't want to accept. People will wait for food that's actually good. They won't wait for food that isn't. So his job wasn't to make wings faster. His job was to make wings good enough that 14 minutes felt like nothing. The original model was deliberately lean. Wings, fries, and sodas to minimize overhead and waste while emphasizing a flavor-first menu. The brand focused on 9 signature flavors from the beginning: original hot, lemon pepper, hickory smoked BBQ among them. In an industry where most wing options were hot or mild, 9 flavors was a statement. It said, "We thought about this more than anyone else did. We cared about the details that other people ignored." Lemon pepper specifically became something almost cultural. Walk into any Wingstop today and ask what the most ordered flavor is. The answer, depending on where you are in the country, is almost always lemon pepper. One more detail that tells you everything about how Swad thought. The original Wingstop location was decorated with a 1930s and 1940s pre-jet aviation theme. Propellers, memorabilia, a nostalgic nod to the golden age of flight, wings, aviation. The connection is obvious, but here's what the theme actually communicated to customers beyond the pun. Reliability, precision. The idea that getting on a plane in 1940 required trust. Trust in the engineering, the craft, the attention to detail that made something complicated look effortless. That's what Swad wanted customers to feel about his wings. By 1997, Wingstop sold its first franchise. By 2002, the chain had served an estimated 2 million wings in 8 years. From a strip mall in Garland, the model was working, the franchise system was scaling, new locations were opening. The economics, low overhead, simple menu, high repeat customers, were as good as anything in the fast casual space. And by 2003, Swad had grown Wingstop to 94 units before selling it to Gemini investors, 9 years after opening the first one. And here's where the story gets complicated, because Swad sold. Not because the business was failing, not because he was forced to, not because something went wrong. He sold at 94 units. With the concept fully proven, the franchise model working, the economics better than almost anything else in the industry, and walked away. The question is why? And the answer to that question is the most important part of this entire story, and is as simple as this. Development, the sale, plus the rocket ship. In 2003, private equity firm Gemini investors acquired Wingstop, marking the end of the founder-led ownership phase and the beginning of institutional backing. Gemini injected capital, professionalized the franchise support systems, built the corporate infrastructure that a concept growing beyond 100 units needs to function properly. And then in 2010, they sold. Rourke Capital Group acquired the chain in 2010, a private equity firm known for acquiring restaurant brands including Arby's, Buffalo Wild Wings, Sonic, Jimmy John's, and Dunkin'. Rourke knew restaurant businesses, and then 2020 arrived. The restaurant industry collapsed overnight. Dining rooms closed, foot traffic disappeared. Chains that had spent decades building in-person customer experiences suddenly had no way to deliver them. Wingstop barely noticed, because Wingstop had spent years building something that most restaurant chains had ignored completely: a delivery-first model. While other restaurants struggled during the pandemic, Wingstop's delivery-heavy model thrived. Same-store sales jumped over 20% in some quarters. During the worst economic disruption in the restaurant industry in modern history, while competitors were closing locations, cutting staff, and negotiating with landlords, Wingstop was having one of the best years in its history. But before all of that, before the pandemic boom, before the stock hit $432, before the 3,000 location milestone, there was Rick Ross. Forbes reports that Ross's interest in Wingstop dates back to the early 2000s, but it was not until launching his music career that he became inspired to purchase a franchise. "I began having those thoughts every time I pulled up to the restaurant," he told Forbes. Yo, this is something I need to do." A rapper buying a wing franchise. At the time, some people thought it was a novelty, a celebrity side project, the kind of business move that generates a few headlines and then quietly disappears. Ross secured his first location near Memphis, Tennessee, and expanded to 5 locations by 2014. And it worked. Let's do the math. Antonio Swad sold Wingstop in 2003 to Gemini investors at 94 units. At that point, the concept was proven. The franchise model was working. The economics were better than almost anything else in the fast casual space. And he walked away. Now, fast forward. Swad walked away with a reported $600 million after a buyout offer came in 2020. But the exit wasn't clean. $600 million, which sounds like an extraordinary outcome. And in any normal context, it is. But in the context of a company whose stock hit $432 a share, whose market cap exceeded $4 billion, whose growth rate was being compared to Chipotle at its peak, $600 million is a fraction of what staying would have been worth. Here's what the Wingstop story actually teaches us. The people who build things that last, they almost never look like what you'd expect. They're not the ones with the Harvard MBA and the venture capital backing and the carefully constructed pitch deck. They're the ones who worked in the industry long enough to see the gap that everyone else was walking past every single day.